Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Beatles Forever. In the last episode, Mal seemed to disconnect from his family, and he stayed in America for 3 months. And then he met another woman, and he felt he was in love with her. So let's see what's going on today. Mal kept up writing his pen pals, sending postcards by the bushel across the United Kingdom and abroad, and Fran moved swiftly to the top of his list. Amid it all, on August the 4th, he made time to attend Bill Collins's wedding. At 60, the Badfinger manager, despite marrying a much younger woman and 24-year-old Tony McMahon, he was beginning to feel his age. As far as Collins went, Mal was feeling happy about his new love, and he was happy to let bygones be bygones. Mal was happy to see the boys from Badfinger, too, who attended the outdoor wedding that weekend. After all, Klein was out of the Beatles' picture, and he earned his just desserts. In recent months, Collins had been questioned by Badfinger, wondering when their riches would materialize. Badfinger felt that Collins was on easy street, having paid for a fancy wedding. And then there was Stan Pauley, the business manager, who had complete authority over the group's finances. He was living like a king while the boys still resided in scumbag houses, despite spearheading hit singles like Come and Get It, No Matter What, Day After Day, and the song by Nielsen, Without You. Meanwhile, having completed principal photography on the Little Malcolm film, George began compiling the movie's soundtrack. To get things rolling, he convened Splinter at Apple Studios that summer for his first pass at Lonely Man. As Big Mal looked on beaming with pride, his song came to life in 370 basement, with Elliot and Purvis fronting an all-star band featuring George and Pete Ham on guitars, Klaus on bass, and Jim Keltner on drums. Having toiled for years to find a vocation outside of being the Beatles' roadie and an all-around manservant, Mal had the great pleasure of witnessing in not one but two of his original compositions in production. That August, the Evans family took their annual vacation, this time traveling to Mallorca, the Spanish island, tourist Mecca, and the Mediterranean Sea. Mal wanted to do some scuba diving. During the holiday, Gary felt that something weird was going on with his father. Mal had booked an afternoon of sub-aqua adventuring for Gary and himself, but when they arrived at the scuba club, they were met by a large group of German tourists who had been given priority over them, despite Mal's reservations. As he drove his son back to the hotel, Mal looked miserable as sin, according to his son Gary, who was 12. He had trouble believing that his father's gloomy state had anything to do with the German tourists who had taken their scuba reservations. My dad was with us in body, but his mind was elsewhere. He was far away. Later, after they returned to Sunbury and Mal prepared to fly back to L.A., Gary put the question to his father. "You're going to leave us, aren't you?" he asked him as the two stood in the back garden. Mal ruffled Gary's hair, saying, "Don't be silly, son." Gary was right, though, about his father being standoffish. Mal was lovesick over Fran Hughes and desperate to return to Southern California. But first he had to ensure that Splinter, as promised, made it into the studio with George. After some last-minute haggling, Dark Horse Records won the Splinter sweepstakes, with Threshold falling out of the contention for the deal. One afternoon, as he was having coffee with Bobby Purvis, Mal was surprised when the musician said, "Hope George does a good job on the album." To Mal's mind, it was an incredible thing to say. "I had to laugh," he scrawled in his diary. George had just 3 consecutive chart toppings in a row with All Things Must Pass, the concert for Bangladesh, and Living in the Material World. And at that very moment, his latest single, Give Me Love, Give Me Peace on Earth, was in heavy rotation. George had originally intended to begin work with Splinter in early October, but delays in the completion of his home studio at Friar Park pushed the session off until Halloween. Over a 2-week period, he and the band managed to cut 14 tracks, including a new version of Lonely Man, which George produced over an 8-hour session on November the 12th. With Mal on hand as a supporting role, Splinter couldn't have asked for a better backing band, with George on guitar, Gary Wright on piano, the ever-reliable Klaus on bass, and Jim Keltner on drums. A few days later, George went to the studio to begin work on his own LP, which Mal was happy to stage manage, if only briefly. In advance of the session for Ding Dong Ding Dong, Mal even dropped by the music shops at Shaftesbury Avenue to pick up strings for Rocky George's psychedelic Strat. When Mal wasn't getting contracts straightened out for Splinter, he was getting ready to return to Los Angeles and to Fran. He hoped at the end of the month. His heart was in California, as evidenced by his diary. At one point, he decorated his M.E. monogram with a line of poetry. No great life has a man than to give his love to another, a crude rendering of John 15:13. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man laying down his life for his friends. But on that very same page, in a less lofty poetic vein, he simply gushed, "Love is a flower that blooms in the warmth of your smile. With you, a day is a garden of smiles." Before he left for the States, Mal wrote about Gary, his son, and he made an apocalyptic poem. "I'm killing you, son, and you know not why. The clowns perform as the audience dies, and my mother tuts about the wallpaper on a bomb site. She is blind to the destruction about her. I am taking my family to be burned, and stroke my son's head, and love him. Life's a car rally with the whole human race going here and there, looking for clues as to which direction to go." For a moment it seemed Mal had felt certain of his destiny. Lil at this time had got a job as a typist at Elite Seals, located 2 miles away from Staines Road East, near Hampton Court Palace. The company manufactured hydraulic seals, gaskets, and other rubber and plastic components. As far as Gary was concerned, it made a difference in his life, too. The family's finances had become so tight that he and Julie qualified for free school meals. Gary's grandmother had recently told him, "You should count yourself lucky, all the toys you got." But Gary saw things differently, thinking, "I'd rather not have all the toys and spend more time with my dad." Before he left for the States, Mal asked Gary what he'd like him to bring back when he returned for Christmas holidays. Gary, fumbling for an answer, said the American version of Monopoly. He then said what he couldn't verbalize to his grandmother: "I'd rather spend more time with you." The next week, Mal was back in L.A., where he was set to meet up with John. Things weren't going well with John Lennon at this time. John described it as his lost weekend. It started in the summer month of 1973. Yoko had kicked John out of the Dakota after his drinking and public debauchery grew out of control. "During the lost weekend, I was just insane," John admitted. "I had never drunk so much in my life, and I've been drinking since I was 15. But I really tried to drown myself in the bottle, and it took an awful lot. I don't seem strong physically that much, but it just seems to take an amazing lot to put me down. And I was with the heaviest drinkers in the industry. The drinkers were Ringo, Harry Nilsson, Keith Moon, Alice Cooper, and Mal. So Yoko got May Pang to stay with John. She was a 22-year-old assistant for John and Yoko. Yoko had considered Mal for the role, but he had been absent from New York City that summer when the crucial decisions were made. After John confessed his attraction to the beautiful young woman, sending him away in her company made perfect sense. Pang had served as Yoko's assistant and as production supervisor on her avant-garde films, and Yoko felt she could count on her loyalty. May was shocked by the thought of the unconventional, even unethical arrangement with her employers. "It will be great," Yoko told her. "He'll be happy. It's cool." Pang felt that being with another woman's husband was anything but cool. It was wrong, Pang remembered thinking, and I wanted no part of it. All that changed, of course, when John made his move, proving simply too much for Pang to resist. That same spring, Mal received a much welcome telephone call from Paul, who was getting ready for the Wings' first proper British tour, 21-show jaunt over 2 months. The 5-piece band was heading out onto the road in support of their Red Rose Speedway album. Paul hired Mal as a consultant to assemble a team of roadies and other technical crew in advance of the tour. For Mal, it was his first opportunity to work with Paul in the past few years, and he jumped at the chance to be of use to his old friend. Lucky fans who attended the first show on May 11th at Bristol's Hippodrome caught up with Mal at a nearby pub, where he was distributing Red Rose Speedway badges. And back in Southern California, Mal fell into his familiar routine again, reacquainting himself with the LA set. On one unforgettable occasion, he joined John and May Pang on a promotional jaunt for Lennon's Mind Games album. Apple rep Susan Markham hired a limo to squire her guests around the greater Los Angeles area to visit radio stations. But when John caught a glimpse of the Markham's canary yellow 1966 Ford Mustang, he couldn't resist riding in the sports car. Markham would never forget the image of John, May, and Big Mal cramming themselves into her tiny automobile. It was the first time I met him, Markham recalled, and Mal was so kind, so special, even as he forced his massive wayward body into the Mustang's cramped interior. Ken Mansfield, who had been working for record labels large and small, decided to go into business for himself. That fall, Mal attended the launch of Mansfield's Hometown Productions, a new venture that would cater to the evolving outlaw country music genre. The gala was even held at Mansfield's ranch in Malibu Canyon, attended by it would be one of George's last appearances with Patty, who would shortly leave him for Eric Clapton. Mal and Mansfield's friendship took on an even greater import during this period. As Mansfield later recalled, Mal and I became the Englishman and the cowboy, riding herd on Sunset Strip until the sun came up many mornings. With Nielsen having made his return to L.A., the three men became fast friends, drinking hard, staying up all hours, and basking in the excitement of the region's burgeoning music scene. So I will end the video here. In this episode, Mal's family, especially his son Gary, seemed to notice that Mal wasn't with him in his mind, even though he was there in body. Poor Gary just wanted his father to spend more time with him, but Mal was led seeking his gratification back in the States. Lily must have felt the difference in Mal, and she got herself a job as a typist. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you haven't subscribed, if you could do it, it would help the channel to grow, as well as giving a thumbs up. It's all a great help. And if you haven't clicked on the notification bell, if you could do that, it lets you know when a video is posted. More importantly, I want to wish everyone a good day, and tune in again soon for another episode of the Beatles Forever. Thank you. Bye.